Mario Rios went from a shy, awkward kid hiding behind video games to a rising fitness star with a massive following, seemingly overnight. He was the guy everyone looked up to, the one who turned his life around and inspired others to do the same. But just as quickly as he rose to fame, he plummeted into obscurity, leaving many to wonder, so how does someone so promising fall so hard, so fast? Mario Rios wasn't always the confident, outspoken fitness influencer many came to know. In fact, his early life was anything but remarkable. Growing up in New Mexico, Mario was shy, weak, and often felt invisible. He was the smallest kid in his class, something that made him the target of teasing and left him feeling out of place among his peers. His late growth spurt only added to his insecurities, and he found himself retreating into the world of video games, where he could escape the harsh realities of his everyday life. Video games became his sanctuary, a place where he could momentarily forget about his struggles and the fact that he didn't quite fit in. As Mario's physique improved, so did his confidence, and this change didn't go unnoticed. He decided to share his journey with the world, hoping to inspire others who might feel as lost as he once did. Mario's YouTube channel started humbly, but his relatable story quickly caught the attention of many. He wasn't just another fitness influencer showing off a perfect body. He was someone who had been through the trenches, someone who knew what it was like to feel inadequate, and was determined to turn his life around. The authenticity resonated with his audience, and his channel began to grow. Mario's big break came when he started to post content that intersected fitness with the controversial views of figures like Andrew Tate. His unapologetic approach and willingness to speak his mind, even if it ruffled a few feathers, made his videos go viral. People were drawn to his boldness, to the way he mixed fitness advice with no-nonsense commentary on life. He wasn't afraid to tackle sensitive topics, and that's what set him apart from other influencers who played it safe. As Mario Rios' star began to rise in the fitness world, so did the intensity of his opinions, and not all of them sat well with his audience. What initially made him appealing, his blunt honesty and refusal to sugarcoat his views, started to become a double-edged sword. Mario's strong opinions, particularly on sensitive topics like depression and social dynamics, began to stir controversy. He wasn't just sharing his fitness journey anymore. He was diving into territory that many felt he wasn't qualified to navigate. One of the most diverse aspects of Mario's persona was his dismissive attitude towards depression. He openly stated that he didn't believe depression was real, insisting instead that it was merely a lack of mental toughness. To Mario, feeling depressed was something that could be overcome with the right mindset and discipline, much like lifting weights or sticking to a diet. While this perspective resonated with some who admired his no-excuses attitude, it alienated a significant portion of his audience. For many, his comments came off as insensitive and uninformed, especially to those who had personally struggled with mental health issues or knew someone who had. Mario's bluntness wasn't limited to his views on depression. His take on social dynamics, particularly gender roles and relationships, was equally controversial. He often spoke about his own experiences with women in a way that many found problematic. For instance, after a painful experience where he felt played by a girl, Mario turned that emotional hurt into fuel for his fitness journey. He openly talked about how the breakup drove him to work harder in the gym and on his YouTube channel, using the pain as motivation to prove his worth. On the surface, this might seem like a classic tale of turning adversary into strength, and for a while, it earned him sympathy and even more followers. However, the way Mario handled these personal setbacks highlighted a deeper issue: his inability to maturely process and move past failure. Instead of reflecting on the experience and growing from it, he channeled his hurt into resentment, often speaking about women in ways that were more about getting even than moving forward. His approach to relationships and how he publicly discussed them began to raise red flags among his audience. What was once seen as candid and relatable started to feel bitter and toxic. This shift in attitude marked a turning point for Mario. His content, which once inspired and uplifted, began to take on a darker tone. The more he leaned into his controversial views, the more he divided his audience. While some continued to admire his toughness and determination, others began to distance themselves, uncomfortable with the direction his content was taking. What started as a story of transformation and resilience quickly turned into a cautionary tale of arrogance and poor decisions. As Mario's confidence grew, so did his belief that he was untouchable. This sense of invincibility led him to make choices that would ultimately cost him the very foundation of his success. In the beginning, Mario's authenticity was what drew people to him. He was the underdog who had turned his life around, and his followers saw him as someone who genuinely wanted to help others to do the same. But as his subscriber count grew, so did his ego. Mario started to believe that he could do no wrong, that his opinions were beyond question, and that his success was a testament to his superiority. This arrogance began to seep into every aspect of his life, from personal relationships to the content he created. One of the first signs that Mario was losing the plot was his shift in focus from helping his followers to promoting himself. His content, which once centered on practical fitness advice and personal growth, began to take on a different tone. Mario was more interested in pushing his brand and selling products than in connecting with his audience. His videos became filled with self-promotion, and the sincerity that had once defined his channel started to fade. Mario's followers, who had initially been drawn to his relatable, down-to-earth personality, began to see through the facade. They noticed that Mario was no longer the guy who wanted to help them. He was now the guy who wanted to profit from them. Sam Sulek, known for his straightforward approach and intense dedication to bodybuilding, didn't hold back when it came to criticizing Mario. Sam found Mario's content to be lacking in substance, often calling out what he saw as Mario's focus on self-promotion over providing real value to his audience. This wasn't just a difference in content style, it was a clash of philosophies. Sam believed in putting in the work and letting the results speak for themselves, while Mario seemed more interested in playing the social media game, often at the expense of authenticity. Their beef became a talking point among fans, with many taking sides based on whose approach they resonated with more. Then there's Hamza Ahmed, who took issue with Mario on a more personal level. Hamza, who has built his brand on self-improvement and mental toughness, was particularly critical of Mario's dismissive attitude towards depression. Hamza's content often emphasizes the importance of mental health and the journey towards becoming a better version of oneself. So when Mario openly declared that he didn't believe in depression, it struck a nerve. Hamza saw this as not only irresponsible, but potentially harmful to the young men who looked up to Mario. Their clash wasn't just about different opinions, it was about fundamentally different approaches to influencing their audiences. Greg Doucette, on the other hand, approached his beef with Mario from the perspective of a veteran in the fitness industry. Greg, who is known for his no-nonsense, evidence-based approach, often called out Mario for spreading misinformation or making exaggerated claims. Greg's critiques were often rooted in his desire to keep the fitness community grounded in reality, and he wasn't afraid to point out when he thought Mario was leading people astray. For Greg, the issue was clear. Mario was more interested in clicks and views than in providing accurate, helpful information. As Mario's arrogance grew, so did his controversial opinions. He doubled down on the statements that had sparked outrage, believing that the backlash was simply a sign that he was challenging the status quo. But instead of engaging in thoughtful dialogue or considering other perspectives, Mario became more entrenched in his views, pushing away anyone who dared to disagree. His once loyal audience began to fracture. Some remained, drawn to his unfiltered honesty, but many others left, tired of the negativity and the constant need for attention. But perhaps the most telling sign of Mario's downfall was how he treated the people closest to him. In a story that mirrors the infamous fallout between Get Flanked and Rogue N, Mario began to prioritize his own success over the relationships he had built along the way. Like Get Flanked, who was accused of betraying a friend to gain favor with Ubisoft, Mario started to throw others under the bus to maintain his position. Friends who had once supported him found themselves sidelined, their contributions dismissed or outright ignored. This betrayal didn't go unnoticed. As word spread about how Mario was treating those around him, his reputation took a hit. People who had once admired him for his grit and determination began to see him in a different light. The cracks in his persona were becoming impossible to ignore. It was clear that Mario was more interested in preserving his image than in maintaining genuine relationships. His actions spoke volumes. To him, loyalty was expendable, and trust was something that could be sacrificed for personal gain. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.